Hello, this is RV Vagabond Jerry, and now that I'm back from my latest cruise, I want to do this one last video about cruises, comparing cruise ships and cruise lines based on my own personal experience. And that has been through 19 cruises. I've now done 17 ocean cruises and 2 riverboat cruises since my first cruise in 1988. Now, the 2 riverboat cruises I'm not going to cover much in this video because riverboat cruises are so much different from ocean cruise ships. They'll hold like 150 passengers maximum, as opposed to cruise ships that will hold 1,500 passengers plus. And the ships are different in many ways, like there is no elevator sometimes, no swimming pool, or maybe just a small swimming pool, and no big theater like the ocean cruise ships have. Because the riverboat cruise ships can only be like about 4 stories high because they have to go under bridges. That's the big difference. So of my 17 ocean cruises, that has been on 7 different cruise lines and on 16 different ships. And these are ships anywhere from the smallest one, which was a sailing ship with actual sails that they have up, which has a capacity of, I think it was around 200 people only. And my biggest cruise ship was the Oasis of the Seas, that had a capacity of 6,700 passengers. Now that one, I'm glad I did it just for the experience, but I would never again go on a ship that big, of over 6,000 passengers. It is just too crowded, and you have to make reservations for the free shows. If you don't, then you may be lucky to get standing room only. Even in like the bars where they have comedians or musicians, standing room only if you don't make a reservation, if you can even get in the door. And in the main theater, they had 1 show each night instead of 2, like the smaller ships have. So I would recommend going on one of those really huge cruise ships once for the experience, but you may be like me thinking, okay, that was all right, but I'm never going to do that again. I think the ideal ship size for any cruise is about 1,500 to 2,500 passenger capacity. Now, my favorite cruise line is Carnival. It's one of the less expensive cruise lines, so it attracts a younger crowd. It attracts families, as opposed to a lot of cruise lines that tend to attract older retired people. Carnival has outdoor entertainment, more games around the pool, and outdoor entertainment by the pool by musicians. And sometimes they will have a sail away party. I remember one Carnival cruise, as we were leaving, I think it was Mazatlan, Mexico, they had a sail away party out by the pool where they had all kinds of Mexican food all up and down the counters. They had a band playing Mexican music. So that was a lot of fun. That's something you don't commonly see most of the time, certainly not on some of the cruise lines that are for the older people. My least favorite cruise line that I've been on was Holland America. It definitely was one that attracts the older retired crowd. It was very quiet as far as the atmosphere, like no outdoor entertainment, much calmer atmosphere compared to one like Carnival. Now let me tell you about the cruise ship that I just went on and how it compares to others that I've been on. This was a Royal Caribbean cruise line. The ship was called the Jewel of the Seas. It's 21 years old, and it had some very unusual things that I have not seen on any cruise ship. For example, it had 2 swimming pools. One of them, the depth of the swimming pool varied only from 5 foot 8 inches to 6 foot 5 inches. And I can't imagine why they would put such a deep pool on a cruise ship. In fact, the second pool that they have, it was 5 foot 9 inches deep, the entire pool. So you can't like walk across the pool. You mostly just hang around the sides where you can hold on to something. That took, I felt, a lot of fun out of being in the pool. In fact, because it's so deep, they had to have a lifeguard stationed right by the pool all the time it was open. First time I've ever seen a lifeguard on a cruise ship. Because all the other ships I've been on, the pool is no more than like 4 feet deep all the way across. And I did have several complaints about this cruise ship that is different from the ones I've been on before. For example, they only had 2 ice machines that you could access, and they were way in the back of the ship, both of them. So if you want to get some more ice for your drink, or fill up a mug with ice, you would have to either go up and ask the bartender to do it for you, or walk all the way back to the ship at the far back end and get your own ice there. And all the cruise ships, including this one, has these beverage dispensers that has tea and lemonade and usually like 2 fruit juices. And on all my cruise ships I've been on, that has been a self-service beverage machine. This cruise ship had 2 of those machines. Both of them were in the buffet room, and they were behind a counter that you couldn't get to. They had to have a person staged there to get the drinks for you. And another thing about the buffet is that all the tea was unsweetened, which is good, in my opinion. But on the tables, they would have the sweeteners, and they would have the pink, blue, and yellow artificial sweeteners. And those 3 are all different kinds of artificial sweeteners manufactured in a lab, which of none of them is good for you. They did not have the green one, which is stevia, which is not an artificial sweetener. It comes from a plant, and it's just as calorie-free as the other ones, except that it's healthy. They had the 3 artificial sweeteners only, did not have the stevia. So I had to bring my own. This has the powdered stevia, which I don't really like. I keep this bottle with me where I put liquid stevia, which mixes much better into drinks. So when I would go to my meals, I would carry this stevia to use in my iced tea. Now, I think on pretty much all of the cruise ships I've been on, you can get food at a counter out by the pool. Usually it's a place where they make hamburgers, and then they have this self-service place where you put all of whatever you want inside your hamburger. They just give you the meat and bun, and you put your own condiments in it. I really like that. This cruise ship, the Jewel of the Seas, did not have that. They did have a place where you could get pizza, but only at certain hours of the day. And that was out by the pool. But other cruise ships I've been on, you can get pizza basically 24 hours a day, or at least from late morning to like midnight or so. So they could have done a lot better with that outdoor eating place. Now, one thing I liked about this cruise ship is that they had a separate theater room with a big screen, just like going into a movie theater anywhere. And I've seen movies on pretty much all of the cruise ships I've been on, but they drop this big screen down at the main theater, a much bigger screen than in this theater room, where they would show movies at times of the day when they don't have the main entertainment show going on. But it was kind of nice to have this extra room that they call the cinema room, which I have not seen on any of the cruise ships. But then one thing they didn't have was that on your TV screen in your room, on other cruise ships, they have a selection of movies that they can play. You just go onto the screen and select which movie you want, and it plays that at any time that you want to watch it. This ship did not have any movies like that you could watch in your room. It did have a couple movie channels that was like from cable TV, but I couldn't find any way of knowing when those movies were going to be coming on and what they were. But on other ships, you go to one channel that would show a list of the movies they have available and what times they're going to be on. Now, they did show some movies on the big outdoor screen as well as on the indoor cinema, but there was only 3 movies they had for this whole 10-day cruise, and they kept showing the same ones over and over and over the whole 10 days. So the movies they did have that they showed, very limited selection. And one other thing I didn't like is that on all the cruise ships I've been on, they have had a refrigerator in your room where you could keep drinks cool. This one, I thought had one, but it would just keep the drinks a little cooler than room temperature. I complained to the room steward about it, and I was told, oh, that's not a refrigerator, that's a cooler. And a very lame cooler at that. And there's 3 other things about this ship I wanted to complain about. Is that in the buffet, all of the ships have the soft-serve ice cream dispensers. On all of my previous cruise ships, that has been self-service. It's not difficult to hold a cone up there and pull the bar down and serve yourself an ice cream cone. Well, here they had that, but they always had an employee standing there all day long to serve the ice cream for you. And I'm much more of a self-service type of guy. I don't like to have to ask anybody for anything. Another thing I noticed about this cruise ship is, you know those do not disturb signs that you can put on the outside door handle of your room? They didn't have those. And I looked all up and down the aisles, and I didn't see any do not disturb signs on any of the door handles of each one of the rooms. So I guess they have just stopped allowing that so that the room stewards can come in anytime they want. And when I didn't want service on a certain day, I would just leave that do not disturb sign out there all day long to keep the room steward from coming in, but I guess here they just don't allow that. And the other thing is about the electric outlets. There were only 2 110-volt outlets, and they were both about this far apart at the desk in the middle of the room. No 110 outlet in the bathroom, which I think a lot of people would want. I didn't, but I did want a 110 outlet near my bed because I use a CPAP machine. So with the 110 outlet way across the room, I had to ask for an extension cord for that. And I've noticed if you go on a cruise that goes out of Europe, a Europe-based cruise, they may have 220-volt outlets only. Now this cruise ship was a 220-volt based ship, but it did have those 110 outlets. And like, for example, on my 2 riverboat cruises, one was down the Nile and one was across Europe from Netherlands to Romania. They had 220-volt outlets only. So if I hadn't brought my 220 to 110 adapter, then I would have been out of luck as far as getting power when I needed it. For the devices, I needed 110 volt. So always bring those adapters, whether you think you may need them or not. Because if a ship was built and based in Europe, it may be very, very limited of any 110 outlets, if any. Now, the newer ships have a lot more of these conveniences. I found out that the average age of all of the cruise ships in the industry is 18 years. Average 18-year-old ships. And some of them are as old as 30 years. So the newer a ship is, the more likely it's going to have the conveniences that you want. I would recommend a ship that is no more older than maybe 5 years. Well, that's about it, folks. I'm looking forward to my 20th cruise. Not sure just where it's going to be. I'm kind of hoping it's going to be a Hawaii cruise. That cruise ship that just goes around the Hawaii Islands. And I do planning on doing 1 or 2 cruises each year and add the videos onto my channel. So please stay tuned. Good day, folks.